The following program is presented by the Metropolitan Library Service Agency.
Hello, welcome to All About Kids, a program focusing on the interests of children and young people and some of the issues affecting them. Today, Bob Bradshaw, Supervisor for Early Childhood Special Education in the Osseo School District, will be talking with Jason Kingsley and Mitchell Levitz, authors of Countess in Growing Up with Down Syndrome, published in 1994 by Harcourt Brace Jovanovich. These two young men are on a nationwide tour talking about their book in an effort to increase the public awareness of the feelings of people growing up with Down syndrome.
We're here today to talk about a new book that's out, and we're going to be talking to the two co-authors. The book is Count Us In, with an undertitle of Growing Up with Down Syndrome. And the authors are Jason Kingsley over here and Mitchell Levitz right here. And basically what we're going to be doing is just having a little conversation about the book so that people will know more about what the book is and the kinds of things that they're going to find in the book. And what I'm going to try to do is ask you some questions that'll bring out what you had to say in the book. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, just some general questions, and both of you can answer this. Is if you could tell people about Down syndrome, what would you say? You know, in general, what kinds of things would you say about it?
Well, I would tell them, I'll tell them at first the meaning of Down syndrome, because Down syndrome is caused by an extra chromosome. It's
Okay. And you know, what about other kids? What would you like other kids to know about Down syndrome?
I would like to tell people about our feelings and how we feel about growing up with Down syndrome and the experiences that we went through. We want to tell them the message of the book and to tell them the purpose of why it is important that we need to tell people the message.
Okay, how about you, Jason? What would you like to have kids know about Down syndrome?
I want kids to know that people with disabilities have the same hopes, dreams, goals, feelings as everyone else.
Good. Okay, how about schools? What should schools know about Down syndrome?
We want schools to know that that people with disabilities have a lot to offer to be part of a regular school.
Okay.
I would like to state one thing which I think is very important, that many students are being integrated into regular education, and I think it is very important for them to have the kind of education that they need, because it helps them and it helps them to learn and also to make friends. It's somewhat like a two-way street, which I'm doing to get at, because the more they enjoy it, the more better of an education that they get.
Okay. And what do you think the future is beyond what's happening right now? What would you like to see?
I would like to see more people to be aware of Down syndrome and more people will understand the issue. And I also want people to raise their voices so that their voices can be heard.
Okay. And I know that in the book you talked about a message for teachers, and that something to the idea of independence. What do you think about independence, Jason?
I think that people with disabilities can receive the same goals as everyone else, like independence. they will learn much more on the future side, because their future goals is more is important of what they are now.
Okay. All right, Jason, another thing is that you mentioned when you were talking about the disabled life. Talk about, you talked about the pain, and you also talked about the good things about in life.
Well, the reason why I wanted to put the disabled life is that the things that you will accomplish all through your childhood and up to where your future goals are.
Okay. Okay, Mitchell, you talked about meeting challenges so far in your life, and you also talked about needing to meet challenges in the future, with help or doing most of it yourself. What did you really mean by, that you could do many things by yourself, but you might need help?
What I was referring to that time is that people want to have a challenge. People want to have a chance to see what's out there for them. And I want to give the impression that people with disabilities are capable and they are able to learn many things, even dealing with your question, because I think that people with disabilities can achieve a lot by taking every challenge.
Okay, sure. Okay. And also you talked about, or you once said that it was important to know yourself. What do you mean by to know yourself?
I was referring, when I said to know myself, was that because I mean these questions are like very general. They gotta
Sure.
go into more specifics.
Okay, you talked about knowing yourself, and as an individual and an adult with a disability, how you handle that. You talked about issues of knowing about your disability so that you would be able to do more in the
Right.
future.
Right, because there are many things that people can do, can achieve, because people with disabilities are capable people. I mean, they can do a lot of things if they're given the opportunities to do so.
Good, and then that gives them an identity, which is very important for everybody to have their self-identity.
That's correct, because if they have the identity, then they can start to raise their voices to bring out the issues that are important to them. And what is unique about that is that people can express themselves by their own feelings.
Okay. Jason, has it helped to write this book? Did you feel it was a good thing to write this book?
Yes, the reason why that is a good thing to write this book is about that we want everyone to know what our feelings are, and we can speak things out in our own language. There's no change in the syntax.
Mm-hmm.
Just we are individuals.
What is unique about this book that there were many books written about Down syndrome, and there were never a single book written by two individuals who has Down syndrome, and that is unique about this book very much, because it's in our own language and nothing has been changed, like what Jason has said.
Yeah, it's more of a conversation between the two of you, with your mothers, with your fathers, with the grandfather. It's a good book because it gets everybody's feelings are very open.
Right.
It's a very, very frank book about how you guys feel about everything.
Right, because there are many issues, a vast majority of issues that people have in common, and that what makes it really special because with me and Jason, we've been friends for our whole entire life. I mean, we look out for each other. I mean, when we were running this book 3 years ago, we've been giving each other advice about a lot of different issues. And even though we got into certain situations, we were able to give each other advice how to handle the situation.
Okay. As long as we're talking about the book, I want people to get to know the two of you a little bit, and there was a section in the book that had some writing that you had done. Both of you had done some writing in high school and talked about your life and talked about, for example, Mitchell talked about camping, and it also talked about some extraordinary events. One of the events was a song that your mother wrote for you for your bar mitzvah.
Yes, that's correct. The song that you're referring to was The Best Me. I'm quite glad that she did wrote that song because that was very special to me at that time when I turned 13 years old. And made me feel good because I know how my mother felt about me, that she really cared about me, and that she really wanted me to know how she felt.
And everybody else too.
Definitely.
Sure. Also, you talked about you went to New York City for some things. You can talk about a little bit about those, March and a dinner with somebody special.
Yes, because I've visited Assemblyman, now he's a senator of New York State. I'm talking about George Pataki. I used to work for him. I met Governor Maricomo. I met a lot of people, a lot of elected officials, because now I'm very interested in the field of politics and government, and that's one of my career goals.
Yeah, I was going to ask you later on about your current goals, but I'm glad that you mentioned it there because it does show that there have been influences in your life, such as Mario Cuomo and the dinner that you went to for the Special Olympics,
right.
and the march that I referred to as the Soviet Jews,
right.
in New York City.
I'm quite glad that I brought that up because my religion is very, very sacred to me, and it's very important. Because I believe that anyone could practice their religion at home, because that's really important to me.
Good. Okay. You also had some experiences. Your 2 years on Sesame Street, and both of you had that experience of being on Sesame Street. But
right. That was a wonderful experience to be on Sesame Street. So that we could show other kids that people with disabilities can be on television. For example, like what you stated, Sesame Street was what me and Jason were on, and also Life Goes On, starring with Chris Burke. These kind of shows really give the positive influence on the public, so that people in the public will know about Down syndrome and how it can affect you and how it can affect people in society.
Mm-hmm. Jason, when you wrote your story, you talked about in the early days you were at the Montessori school, and that was way back in preschool. That's quite a few years ago, and you talked about some special stimulation that you had. Do you remember that?
Yes. The first time I've been into the Montessori school is that it gave me a good sense of reality on this issue.
And they let you do things that were you. And do you remember that a certain doctor had you do some special stimulation? You talked about Jello and styrofoam.
Yeah, it's Dr. Giannini.
Right.
She is a doctor at the preschool that can give me a lot of good muscle tone, and the main thing is to develop my senses and develop what I am capable of doing.
Both me and Jason had that speech and language because by having when we took the speech and language we were taught many different things. We were taught how we could speak more clearer and for people to understand us. This is the reason why we took speech and language, and I felt that was very significant.
Okay. And Jason, you also talked about a movie, Kids Like Me.
Kids like, right.
And do you know, or could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, Kids Like These is what my mom wrote with her lawyer Alan Sloan. It was about our life that develops from near age 10. We hired some people, Tiny Daly, who played the role of my mom. I also kind of played my role of my father, and 5 kids pay me. So I'm very happy that she did Kids Like These because we want to know what are some issues happened a long time ago up to now.
Yeah, it was a very, very good television show because I remember seeing it, and it then when I was reading in the book about it, it kind of brought it all back to me again.
Right, I'm quite glad that Emily did that movie, and I'm quite glad that she is now. I'm quite glad that she is writes scripts for Sesame Street. It's really like brought everything together because with her work that she does, it really helps people to understand that these kinds of issues must come out, and by doing that, this is the way that we approach it, by stating the issues and stating what is important, and by doing that is by looking at Emily and what she has done with Sesame Street and movies like Kids Like These, show that people can that these people have capabilities and people are able to do many things, and that's what makes it very special.
That's really for sure. Also, you talked about Broadway musicals being a favorite of yours. Do you have any feelings about wanting to do a Broadway musical someday?
Yes, I'm very glad you brought that up because I'm in the drama club in school, Lakeland High School in Shrub Oak. I am in the Wiggin Whiskers Drama Club. I'm a very, very good person of Broadway shows. This year we're doing Annie Get Your Gun, and I knew any Broadway show, any Broadway song, and every word happened in that show.
Yeah, you talked a lot about being singing a lot of the songs, and if you heard a song, you could tell right away what musical it was in, and
that's
everything about the show.
That's how I developed. Because the way I feel about Broadway shows is it gave an influence to other people to have that opportunity.
Okay. Jason, also in the book you talked about that if you could talk to the obstetrician that delivered you and who talked to your mom and dad at the time about not taking you home, you said that you had a message for that person. And why don't you just talk to me like I'm that person, because I think that a lot of people need to hear that message.
Well, first of all, I want to say that my parents and Mitchell's parents disregarded that information because that doctor that delivered me said that I should be institutionalized, I would not exist, and died at childbirth. now, in my imagination at this book, that if I can confront my feelings to that obstetrician, that people with disabilities can learn. And we hadn't heard from him since, but we called in the hospital many times, so we hope that response happens.
There's one thing I'd like to add, I think it's very important, because a very long time ago, what we just was talking about, that I think it's very important that for parents to realize that doctors will give the parents an alternative, give them some advice of what to do. But I'm quite glad for Jason that Emily and Charles brought him home, and my parents did the same thing to give us a chance to be in community with other people, to have a chance to have opportunities to live for life, and that makes it really special. By doing that, I gotta say for the record that I'm very thankful that all of our elected officials and most of our legislators are trying to shut down every single institution, because that is not a place for a person who has a disability to be in.
Okay, good. That's a good message. I think that hopefully that everybody who needs to hear that message will, not just the obstetricians, but everybody.
And not only that we shut down all the institutions, but we want to make the institutions listen to a school of human development of how can you of people who are having abilities and doing the same development.
Okay. You talked a little bit earlier when we were just talking a little bit, Mitchell, you talked about the Jane Pauley show in the interview that you had there, and you said that you wanted to be president someday, and that I was just wondering, what kinds of things you had been doing lately that was toward that end. You talked a little bit earlier about being very interested in politics, but what kinds of things are you doing now?
I've been lobbying Congress. I testified for a subcommittee for Senator Tom Hargan, and I've also been involved with the governmental affairs committees for NISARC, and I've been on several of committees, like for example the Lakeland School District. I'm on the Community Action Committee, and I even work for two state. I even work for two state assemblywomen and a assemblyman public office. I mean, that really, with all my work experience and everything, I believe that that it'll be HR first, that a person who has a disability can be president, because with my experience, what I went through by lobbying, by being involved by being involved on committees, it really shows that people with disabilities can be heard, and also that they can have a say in what they want to see to be changed, and that is very significant. Even issues dealing with closed down institutions, even issues dealing with jobs, and also healthcare reform. Those issues are very important to every individual.
I'm glad you mentioned that they're important to every individual. A lot of the things that you just said are things that every individual should be interested in and should be doing if they are interested. You have taken a stand, and you've gone and done some of the things that are important. Jason, just one of the things that was kind of fun as far as I was concerned, in your talk with your grandfather in the book, you were talking about fishing, and somebody mentioned something about having an old family custom in dealing with fishing, and I was very interested in that because I like to fish too.
Well, because of that grandpa and I were fishing, and the old family custom is that we went to the Guinea Park. We fished And then the old family custom is that even though we caught one fish, we just kissed it and threw it back in the water. One main point of being with a grandfather is that the relationship is important than fishing.
Sure, it's the support.
It's the support of my grandfather.
Right.
I get the same I get the same support from my grandparents because they've been very supportive and they're understanding as well because they had helped me with a lot of things. For example, me and my grandfather always get together. We always talk about issues. He even helped me study for my exams, even for my RCTs, and those kinds of things. I mean, between me and Jason, we have a very special relationship with our grandparents and our families because they've always been special to us and we've been very special to them, and that what makes it really special that both me and Jason have been friends for numerous times. I mean, for our whole entire life. And by writing this book, it really our relationship got much closer. And now I realize that with Jason, Jason had a lot of things in common, and we have a lot of things that are different. But even though we have things that are different, doesn't mean our friendship will change, because it will always be the same no matter what, because we care about each other and we look out for each other no matter what. No matter what happens, or direction that we go into.
Okay, I guess we've only got a few seconds left here, and I guess that what I want people to know is that this is a good book for everybody to read. I think that not only for people with disabilities, be it Down syndrome or any other disability, but also for lots of parents, for raising children, the support that your family gave you, the support that you gained from each other, the support that you gained from people at school. That's the kind of support that everybody needs, whether you have a disability or not. And I'd just like to say that I'm planning on at least getting a few of the books for our center so that I can loan them out to parents and loan them out to staff to read. It's very important. I want to thank you, too, for writing that book.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle Levitz, Jason Kingsley, and Bob Bradshaw. This interview certainly has shown that people with Down syndrome are important members of society. Thanks to all of you for joining us on All About Kids. Please tune in again.
This has been a presentation of Hennepin County Library in conjunction with the Twin